Hey, kids.
Handsome today.
You said that last week. They're going to think it's the same one. All right, so we're continuing our series, Marvel Monday, which is today. We're watching all 23 MCU movies in the order they were released. This is MCU number 4, which is Thor, and that's from 2011, and we're still in phase 1 of MCU. Joel is leaving.
Sorry, dogs.
Here with me is Amy Goldman, like me, a newbie, and Joel Fenster, who I was told last week was very quiet.
Okay.
You were too quiet. You were too quiet last week. And Mark Gartner, who is never quiet.
Hi,
And he
with the
has
Thor socks.
4
Yay.
socks and his 4 mug of beer. And we have Annie King joining us. She took a week off, but she's back now. And she's the one who can't speak in full sentences from last week.
When you're texting.
And now we have a new fan, Nick Priscott, here with a British perspective on things. Now we're going global.
Absolutely.
Okay. And all 5 of us have seen Thor this week, right?
Yeah.
All 6 of us.
6 of us, sorry. Yes. Okay. So we left last time on MCU. The after credit sequence was the New Mexico license plate, the big hole in the ground, which I didn't know what it was, and Thor's hammer, whose power has no equal. Hyperbole for sure, because I mean, Loki's spear at the end seems just as powerful. Am I right?
There's definitely things a lot more powerful. You'll see.
Okay. And then, so now we know the hole in the ground was Thor landing on Earth, right? Okay. So let's say, so we had Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, and they're both like normal people who just things happen to, but the mighty Thor is a god. Joel, why do you think Thor came next?
Well, theoretically, he wasn't supposed to. There was some production issues in pre-production between that and Captain America. So, and I think it just works naturally this way anyway, going into the Avengers, to have it in that specific order.
Well, and Captain America was the same year.
Yes, it's just a couple of months later, but
Yeah,
but originally they were flipped. But I think also Thor has, again, just not just leading into the Avengers, he did have his own cartoon back in the 60s. You know, he did have his own Mego action figure in the 70s. So there is a little more, you know, popularity with him than others that will come later. So.
Did you have the action figures in the 70s? Is that where all that madness began?
Oh, probably.
Funny. All right, so now we're completely going British with this one. They hired Kenneth Branagh. And Nick, is that why you signed on? Because this is a very British one.
Just one of my favorites.
Okay, so, but, you know, and certainly Kenny does give it that Shakespearean feel. I mean, that whole beginning definitely felt like it was, and of course, so he's a Norse god, but, you know, like in any movie, if you're any European derivation, you talk with a British accent. So hire Anthony Hopkins, right, to play the dad. What's his name? Odin.
Odin.
And Rene Russo is his mother, and her name is Frigga. Just saying. And we got Natalie Portman. And it was funny at the end, he says to her something like, I'll see you. And I'm thinking, I don't remember her being in too many of them. I don't know
We'll see her
how
again.
Oh,
Yeah.
we will see her again.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there was one moment where Anthony Hopkins was saying to Thor, I proclaim you. And there was a huge close-up on Chris Hemsworth. And I said, gorgeous? Because he is.
Wow.
Good Lord. Good Lord. Okay, so we're in Asgard. And it's a secret world. It's a secret world, right? Not unlike Wakanda in Black Panther. Now, what is it with these secret worlds where they won't share things with us? Joel?
Well, this is an entirely different. This is not on our planet.
Yeah,
Wakanda is simply hidden within the planet.
Oh, okay. Wakanda's in our planet?
It's in Africa.
it's
Oh,
it's
okay.
Yeah.
it's just hidden via force field bubble. I don't know.
Technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Of
is
course.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Asgard's another world.
yeah, and as he lays it out, it's out there in the universe. It's just very, very far away.
Right.
But
He drew a diaphragm of the 9 places. And you have it behind you, right, Nick? Right there?
yes,
right
I
now?
do. Yes, this is Asgard behind us.
Oh, so that's where you're calling in from?
That's absolutely.
All right, and
Good
so
sir.
Tom Hiddleston, who becomes so popular with this movie that he dates Taylor Swift, and he's Loki, who's the brother, and right from the beginning, you're like, he's manipulating things here. He doesn't seem like a good brother.
You could just tell by his looks in comparison.
Right. I mean, right. Chris
Dark
Hemsworth
hair,
is gorgeous and
skinny,
blonde.
angry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't even look like they're brothers. Joel looks exactly like his brother. But here, Joel, I read this somewhere that they were using the Bond movies as some kind of model for the MCU. Do you think that makes sense?
In what sense are you speaking? Because
The gadgetry and the quick cutting and the fights and that sort of thing.
are you talking about on a filmic, the actual cinematic level?
Yeah.
Sure, I can see that. But that's a matter of getting editors to know what they're doing, cinematographers to know what they're doing, to really make a cohesive look that goes across a bazillion movies at this point.
I mean, so whoever's idea was to have this series, obviously, and culminate with the end game, pretty brilliant idea. I mean, because you had all those characters, and so we're meeting all of the Avengers. Mark, who in the comic books are the main team, the original main team of Avengers?
Original were Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp. Although
And Captain America.
No,
not at first.
he came in, I don't know, maybe like the 3rd or 4th book. It was pretty quick, but he was not an original 4. Okay. He was still in ice when Avengers 1.
So Ant-Man was in the original
He
Avengers?
was, him and the Wasp.
But we don't see them until after the first Avengers movie, right?
Yeah. If you're going to pick Captain America or Ant-Man to star in a movie, you're going to pick Captain America.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a lot of backstory because he's a god, right? And they handle it very well. I mean, in these kinds of situations, it's there's a lot to tell, and things could go from bad to Norse.
Stupid. I'm out.
They don't.
Damn it. There we go.
But they really handle it very well. I feel it goes very quickly. It's very efficient. You meet all the people you're supposed to meet. And it's so funny to me because this is exactly what I was thinking. And Amy, maybe this was the scene you were referring to, is when, Thor is all pissed off and he goes back to his house and then he flips the table like a New Jersey housewife.
Oh, that was great. That was not my joke, but that was very funny.
All right.
Well, and would you consider there's certain symbolism as well to, and obviously it's all speculative depending on who has told it, but Jesus entering the temple and flipping it over, and meanwhile the way Jesus is portrayed, and obviously it's clearly inaccurate because he was actually Middle Eastern, but you've then got another long-haired, bearded guy coming in and flipping a table over there.
That's funny. When I watched it, I did think, wow, that looks like the Last Supper table. I kind of, sort of.
Okay, Nick, we don't get that deep with our correlations.
I've got more.
All right. No, that was good. All right. So, Aim, just yell when we get to your funny observation.
Okay.
Okay. So his brother has dark hair, which we said. So, oh no, already we know is something. And he totally manipulates his brother into doing stuff. I mean, that face was so obvious. I was like, hmm. And and then we're going to Jotunheim. I don't know where Jotunheim is, but it sounds like it's in Israel. Jotunheim.
It's one of the 9 realms, as they explain in the movie.
As
and
he drew his diagram. Of
yeah,
course.
exactly. It's just another planet.
And so, Mark, is this from the comic books, all of this?
I don't know.
You're not
Yes.
a Thor?
Yeah, I
I
read Thor as a kid, so
Yeah, I read Thor more than a handful of times, but again, late 80s, early 90s. So he actually wasn't Thor when I was reading it. He was actually a human being at some point, which is a different storyline.
Well, he is in this movie too, because when he falls.
Well,
to
no,
Earth-
it's different. It would be
Yes.
like you all of a sudden are given the power of Thor as a human being. So I don't know a lot of the backstory.
Right. So in true comic book tradition, we just accept that the portal works and he goes to Earth.
Of course.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, Amy, you saw Ragnarok first. What did you think coming and now hearing the origin story?
I'm so bad at remembering movies after I see them. I just remember loving that movie. And I read as much backstory as I needed. It said, this is what you need to know before you watch this. So now seeing the backstory is very interesting because I know nothing of Thor except that he has a hammer and he hammers in the morning. That is it. So
I
it was
think one
interesting seeing it and all.
I think one important thing to note here is number one, in the comics, he is much more, a little boring, a little what you would expect of a god, not joking, at least traditionally. Here, I think they made him a little bit funnier, and you'll notice as the movies go along, he gets progressively funnier, and I think it's smart because Chris Hemsworth himself is a big goofball, and I think they just took that and ran with it. And Amy in Ragnarok, that's where I think, I always get his name wrong, Taika Waititi.
Taika
Yeah.
Waititi.
Yes, exactly what I said. He more or less went with it and just had Chris Hemsworth. It was. If you don't remember everything, it gets a lot funnier.
Well, I remember watching yesterday thinking, wow, this is pretty amusing. I didn't think it was going to even be funny at all. I thought in Ragnarok, that's when they just went crazy.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, now based on what you just said, that too will also be amusing. There were a lot of times yesterday that I was, no, it's not, no.
So yeah, I definitely felt that, as opposed to the snarky Tony Stark, here the humor was just, kind of fun, and his whole, when he got to Earth and the whole fish out of water thing was
Fish
cute.
out of water stories.
Yeah, it was very cute that he didn't know some of the things, but a little ridiculous for me getting hit by the van twice. And he escapes from the hospital. Everybody was looking for him. What, he just walked out in his pajamas?
Yeah.
They got hit by the ambulance. Yeah.
And then he got hit by the van. I'm like, okay. All right, so going back a little bit. So when they're fighting the giants, what are the giants called?
Frost
giants.
I heard nothing.
Frost giants.
Frost.
Oh, frost giants, okay. Then somebody says, don't let them touch you. And then Loki, who has secret disappearing powers we didn't even know about. Ooh, he can disappear. And what did I miss? Was that was the reveal right then? When he disappeared? We're like, oh, he can disappear.
Yeah, but it didn't affect him that he was touched.
Yeah.
Why didn't?
The big reveal there is,
Is that
because Volstagg has his arm grabbed and freezes, and he gives a bit of exposition and calls out and says, "Don't let them touch you."
Right.
And 30 seconds later, one of them touches Loki,
Right.
and it briefly affects him and then comes back. And you can see Loki at that point, he's starting to question it himself. He's starting to question, why am I not being affected by the frost giants in the same way that the others are?
So he didn't even know he could do this.
Well,
He did-
No, he
yeah.
didn't know that he is a frost giant.
Yeah.
Oh, he had no idea.
Oh, that's why it doesn't affect him.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, that you just did a spoiler. Okay.
You didn't watch it yet?
No, I got it. All right, so okay, then they're surrounded, and we get Deus ex Hopkins because he comes in and saves everybody. Why didn't he do that sooner? So, okay, Thor is banished. The brother's like,
In that big fight scene, what happens is that big dinosaur thing is revealed. And I thought, why is there a dinosaur here? Are we watching Thoracic Park?
ah, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it.
Come on, Thoracic Park!
But it's you see even when they are getting ready, because there's been the issue with the frost giants breaking in during his coronation, and Thor's angry about all of that. Odin says, no, leave it, we're not doing anything with it. And something I noticed more recently as well is you notice different times when Loki is being the god of mischief and when he's being manipulative. But it's very subtle.
That's who he is, the god of mischief?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
he's the
I love
yeah, and that's our dog is named Loki, and he's equally mischievous. But it's very subtle, because Thor and Loki are having that conversation, and Loki says, well, essentially paraphrasing a bit here, he's like, well, it's not like we can just go over to Jotunheim and start kicking ass, and goes to sort of like just carry on with the discussion, and Thor's like, oh, but we could. And it's the little seeds that he's planting in there, because he knows that, Thor, particularly at that point, and it is his early undoing, he lacks humility. And he's just full of bravado. He's just been given all of these powers and just been feted by his entire, community of Asgardians. So Loki basically he's like, well, we can't possibly do that. And he's just poking at him. And he knows all he needs to do is, yeah.
And but Thor certainly, he seemed crankier than Joel. All right. So then we get to the point, which was the end credit sequence. He lands on Earth, the hammer flashes off in the distance, and now it's like the sword in the stone. Only the worthy one can take out the hammer.
I love seeing them see the crash site, and then you don't even realize you're now going to watch the whole thing come right back to that moment again. I love that. I loved it.
Very fun. Okay, so Stan Lee's cameo, did it work? Cute.
One of my favorites.
Yeah. Very
Easily.
It's also coupled with a cameo by one of the writers on the comic book as well. The first person who pulls up to try to pull the hammer out of the ground is actually J. Michael Straczynski, who had a almost 2-year run on the book back in, I don't know, 2010-ish or so.
Now, Joel, isn't he one of your heroes because of the Babylon 5?
Yeah, he also created Babylon 5. So
yeah,
so there's that.
Okay, and Agent Coulson is back. Good for him. And so here's a little thing, like Natalie Portman says, oh, that's my ex, Donald Blake. Is he somebody? Should we know him?
Donald Blake was the original, when Mark mentioned earlier that Thor would turn into, it was a human that would get Thor's powers. Right. That was Donald Blake. Donald Blake had a cane. He was a doctor. He would smack his cane on the ground and become Thor.
And that is gonna happen, or that already happened?
They've tossed that all out the window.
Oh, okay.
There's really.
But here they were trying to plant a little seed, and then they're like, no.
It's more, I wouldn't call it a seed. It's more like an Easter egg. Oh, hey, Donald Blake actually exists, but you're never going to see him because we're never going to go that way. So.
Okay, so then they're in this town, right? And one of the stores is OK Furniture. Yeah. I would shop there. I just need OK furniture. I don't need good furniture, just OK furniture. And then there's a sign that says it's the home of the Vikings, way out in New Mexico somewhere, because they landed there. And so they take all of Natalie Portman's equipment, and then they go and try and find her equipment. And then there's a mud wrestling scene, but no women are in it. Sorry, Mark.
I know. I was disappointed. Yeah.
Kat Dennings and Natalie Portman could have been rolling around in that mud, but no. And then the big reveal, Loki is not Thor's brother. But now here's my question. If he's half frost giant, how does he look human? Because he doesn't look like them.
He spent more time with them. I don't know. It could be any explanation. You know, he's been in Asgard, so you know why when Odin
Okay,
picked
so
up the baby, you know, in that scene,
Turning.
he turns human, so he just stays.
Oh,
that
it's another one of those comic book things.
Just gets a little bit of a tan.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Okay, so the other thing was, okay, so Stellan Skarsgård, he's probably Norwegian, Norse. He's probably Norse.
He is Norwegian.
And he says, we know the name of the scientist. No, I don't. Who was he talking about?
Bruce
Banner.
Banner.
Was it previous movies?
Bruce
What?
Banner. Bruce Banner.
Oh, I had no idea that's who he was talking about. I
Because
guess
it was
because
talking about a guy dealing with radiation.
Yeah, gamma radiation is a
Gamma
giveaway there.
radiation, yeah.
So he didn't. He said it like we know the name, but we don't want to talk about it because we hate both those movies. That's what it sounded like. Okay, so
Occasionally they do try to be subtle.
Thor is immortal, right? He's a god.
Theoretically.
So how does he die? He
Uh,
dies at the end of the movie, and then he wakes up again. So
Well,
he wasn't dead. We thought he was dead.
When you have
And
something in
didn't you
North,
think he was dead?
And I knew he wouldn't be dead. So, and then as soon as the hammers came, I was like, okay, the hammer is what wakes him up again.
The Hulk Hogan. Remember, like he'd always hand, and then the hand would go up at the end. It was just like that.
Oh, I see.
Sure.
That's kind of
So,
like,
okay, and Mark, you suggested at one point we do a
I'm
watch
trying.
party,
Okay, yeah.
right? You would hate watching this movie with me because I'm that kid who's like, wait, what happens? What happens next? Why is this here? What is
I'd
that?
have to
I
turn the
would be
volume
that,
off. Yeah.
I would be that
Danny said we
annoying.
should all watch it together.
Yeah, because I would totally be that annoying person who's like, wait a minute, what's going on now?
And we would all go, oh, when we heard gamma radiation. And Frank would be like, what?
I missed that. Okay. And also another cuteness was someone said to Thor, no more smashing. Deal?
Yeah.
I'm like, right,
Mhm.
even the Thor knows that's Hulk's thing.
I thought that too.
Smashing. You don't
Thor
smash.
smash.
Okay, and of course Stellan thinks that Thor is a nut job with the Norse legends. Then he finally gets to a library. He couldn't look on his phone. He finally gets to a library and reads up on the Norse gods. And he went, ooh, maybe he is a Norse god. And then there's Jeremy Renner, one shot with the bow. I'm like, oh, come on. Now I know, of course, obviously he shows up later, but that's it. They gave him one little,
I
again,
thought
for the,
that too. And then I looked it up and he's in future movies. So it was just
Yeah.
a setup.
yeah, again, for the fans. Here's, what's his name?
Hawkeye.
Okay.
Hawkeye?
Yeah.
It was a one-off thing. That entire thing was shot after the fact, by himself. He's in no shot with anybody
No,
else.
he's
so-
in one little
Yeah.
shot of himself, taking out and then he goes, I'm good. You don't need my help.
No.
All right, and then we get to the big fight again, now with the destroyer, but is Loki controlling the destroyer from Asgard?
Yes.
That's a long distance, it's another world.
Wait,
must
what's
have-
the destroyer again?
That robot-y
Open
thing that he was
face.
fighting.
Oh, yeah, with the
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah, it's the same robot that you see right at the very start, who is there to defend Asgard from the frost giants when they first
Right,
arrive. So you
right.
know he's a defender, and he's very much like Gort, from the day the world stood still, in some ways as well.
Oh,
It's
okay.
enormous, powerful robot.
I
I
agree.
like that. But I thought it was amazing. He must have pretty good reception to be able to control him from another world.
Well, I thought it was just that he was given a command by his king to destroy, and that's what he was sent to do.
But it looked like,
Seemed to be
Loki looked like he
manipulating
was
him.
like,
Yeah, I thought
doing
so.
When Thor talks to him and says, "Take me instead," yes, he was definitely being controlled directly by Loki. That's the way I took it from there.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so, okay, now I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun. Liam is very easy on the eyes.
Chris.
There
Liam's
was
brother.
I'm sorry.
Chris.
Liam's brother.
Oh, I said Liam. I'm sorry. He is
Yeah.
too. Chris
Greg
is.
Kinnear was in this movie too, Frank.
They're interchangeable. Come on. The two of them are interchangeable.
Apparently, they were both finalists for the role.
There you go. So I give it a solid 3 stars. There was some idiocy going on, and I hated things that were just so ridiculous. But it was fun, and I enjoyed it, and the fights were fun, and it didn't seem, overbearing in one of those comic books transformer kind of ways. So it was fun. Aim?
That's exactly the reason why, again, I liked it so much more than I thought I would. It wasn't overbearing with the fight scenes. It was an actual story. I loved the humor. I loved him throwing the mug on the floor and saying, another. I loved him going into the pet store and saying, I need a horse. Oh, he was just adorable. He was so adorable. I liked it a lot. 3 solid stars. Well, again, some parts where I went,
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
like, especially the whole love story was just silly to me.
Yeah,
Unnecessary.
and it's going to come back, obviously.
Yeah.
All right. Annie, what did you think?
I would definitely say 3. It was a solid movie. I enjoyed the story. It was fun to watch and a lot of humor. For me, I actually didn't feel like there was a big fight scene that was kind of missing from it, although you would like that there wasn't like an over the top. And I also like the character Loki. He's like the villain that you hate to love, but I really love the character. I think it's a great character.
No, I mean, he certainly was very complex. He had issues, and he could be nice, and then he could be a real bastard. So, yeah, it was good. Tom was good.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed him in there, and I mean, there's a lot of different issues, father figure, and
Yeah, it was good.
the whole not the son of, and I love when Thor said son of coal when he was talking to
Coulson, yes.
That was really funny.
That was great.
to me, yeah.
Very cute. And I thought the special effects were beautiful. They've come a long way since 2009, 2008.
Yeah. Mark?
3 stars for me too. I like it better than the last 2 weeks, but not as much as Iron Man 1. I just think what Marvel has done is create great casting, because it's not just Thor. It's all, like you just said, it's Loki. Stellan Skarsgård, he's in a lot more going forward. And I love him. I think he's great. And Kat Dennings, big fan.
I don't have a problem with Kat Dennings. I did not like her annoying character, always with that kind of hat.
I thought it was cute. She was playing what she was supposed to. She was the comic relief. I wasn't a big fan of Natalie Portman in this. I like her in a lot of other things. I think it's kind of strained to have that love story there, and I think that's why she exits eventually.
Yeah, I don't think she really had much of a role. I mean, she was there.
Yeah.
Joel?
I'm gonna go a little bit higher than you guys, 3.25 stars, just because the comic book fan in me thinks they really captured the essence of the comic book without going back to some of the hokier things that defined it when it was first created in the 60s, and using some of the more modern storylines to tie things into what they're building properly. It's wonderfully cast. It's, there are a couple of parts here and there that don't quite work, but nothing that derails the movie in any stretch of the imagination. It's on par with Iron Man, better than the Hulk and Iron Man 2 by a long shot. So.
Well, if we could go to 3.25, I probably would, because I gave both Iron Men 3.
Why can't you? I'm going to do 1/4 stars whenever I
think I'm going to have to agree. Because if I gave all 3 of those 3 stars, I definitely like this one the most.
Yeah.
3 sevens.
Yeah, Joel is always the anarchist. He has to always challenge the situation.
I'm
Nick,
with you, Joel.
so Nick the Brit, this is
It's
the
an
most
American
British.
citizen.
It's the most British of the MCUs.
It is, yeah. It's certainly the most British. Even with an Australian as the lead.
That's the same. They're the same.
Yeah.
British Australians.
Well, they're just, that's where we sent them. So
Exactly.
when I saw pretty much all of these movies as they came out, and I've always enjoyed this movie. And as others have said, I think despite you have like the scenery that's behind me, there's a lot of special effects to a certain extent there. You have the special effects of the Bifrost, but the story is relatively simple. In the same way, Iron Man, the story is relatively simple. And as the movies go on, they get much more layered. And in some cases it works. In some cases, your head starts to spin and you're like, oh, I have no idea what's going on now. But I loved this movie when it first came out, and I would have given it 3 at that point. I'm actually going to tack on an extra half at this point, because having rewatched it again, you pick up more of the subtleties there. And I think one of the most enduring parts about this is it gives you the first insight into the Thor and Loki relationship, which is very complex and builds as the series goes on. And you realize, Thor was sent to Midgard, to Earth, as a penance. He was cast out primarily for his arrogance and his lack of humility. And part of the problem with them going to Jotunheim in the first place was, Loki he planted the seed and taunted him, and caused Thor to take that raiding party out and cause the whole problem, which is what causes Odin to cast him out. You then see Loki, glamour his way into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s base there, and it becomes the question: is he there because ostensibly it looks like he's there to taunt him? He recognized that Thor is depressed, he's down, he's feeling defeated. And on the surface of it, he's there just to basically twist the knife a little bit, let him know that Thor has lost. But what you see is, by doing that, it benefits Thor, because it's not that Thor is like, you know what, I'm not going to let you say this to me, and he pumps up again. It benefits him because he starts to become more human and more humble, because what was holding him back was his arrogance. So once he starts to actually recognize, his own level of humility, that's what gives him the ability to then capture back Mjolnir. And you remember, as Odin, he puts the spell, or whatever we call it, onto it. And part of it is, having the honor and the humility, to have the humility to be able to wield it again. So it's, Loki basically starts building that back in, and that then, during the little fight scene in the street, and I always look at that little fight scene, and it, for whatever reason, maybe it's the way it's staged, it reminds me a little bit of the battle in Superman 2, where you've got the 3, Zod and his warriors come and they blow up the town a little bit. It has a little bit of that imagery. But Thor sacrifices himself essentially for the humans and for his 4 warriors that came to try and rescue him. And then the spell then comes back to him, and that's how he gets his powers back. But it's worth pondering, was Loki really trying to run him down and finish him off emotionally? Or, as you look at their relationship build over the series, was it the subtlety of Loki knowing, this is the only way I can get my brother to actually recognize what his true calling is? So I have to make him think that I'm trying to humiliate him, because it's the only way I can get him to become who he needs to be.
Yeah, we definitely saw him trying to manipulate him the whole time. And I think that's I think I definitely appreciate the whole fact that after seeing all 23 movies, if you go back now, you can see where they were planting those seeds, and those subtleties then resonate because of the very fact that you know where it's going. So
I was just going to say that for Amy and Frank, once you watch all of it, and if you're really loving it, would you go back and now rewatch it? Because you do notice all these little things that you're like, oh, this is where it comes from.
Well, it's funny. I did rewatch all of Breaking Bad after I saw it, just to see all of that happening, for sure. Yeah. I don't know that I would do this, because we might be doing yet another project. But I could
Maybe
definitely
in five, maybe in 5 years we can come back and do,
right.
I can just run all these videos again. All right, so then I have a few. Oh, Ann, go ahead.
The best part really is being able to discuss it with people. So when I was watching it, I would talk to my brother and he would fill me in. And he's like, no, don't you remember? Or this is where it comes from. And you saw that in the other movie, you know?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what Wikipedia is for.
it's
So,
nice to discuss
yeah.
and get
and
like
then,
comic book background and stuff. For me, I
Right.
think that's like great that like
yeah, yeah,
everybody comes with a little something to it.
yeah, that's why we have
Yeah.
Joel here.
Yeah.
But Aim, this is exactly it, because one of your favorite parts in this movie was the cuteness of him fish out of water, and one of the best parts of Iron Man was him trying to create the suit. And it was that little bit of comedy, and that's what made it endearing. You
Absolutely.
know, that little bit of more origin, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm watching, because now I know I gotta watch till all the way to the end to see the credits, and this comes up, special thanks, Ralph Macchio. Okay, why? Anybody?
I thought I read that in IMDb. I just don't remember why.
I
think
have no idea.
mention it.
I'm like, why
Why
does
not?
Ralph? Well, okay, I thought somebody will know. And this is
It's
the first time it
Frank,
says,
it's probably it's planting a little Easter egg for season 4 of Cobra Kai.
that must be it. And then this is the first time it actually says at the end, Thor will return in the Avengers.
Yeah, that was funny.
And the post-credit sequence, of course, Nick Fury meets Professor, I don't even know his name, Stellan Skarsgård.
Eric Selvig.
Wow.
Sounds
And
right.
and the suitcase, it's power. And then he says, well, I guess that is worth a look. And Loki, we see Loki saying it. So now Loki can control the professor from Asgard? Huh?
Says he's on Asgard.
Loki's gone. He fell off.
You don't know where he is.
Yeah.
But we
But
just
he's
saw him
controlling his
say,
mind.
Yes.
Which
He's
I was
God.
like, oh my God, that's so cool.
He's a god. He's got powers that you don't understand. So
you're telling me.
exactly.
And you're not worried about him getting cold in outer space because he's actually biologically a frost giant.
Right.
Yeah, he's he's Thor's adopted brother, but he's not even his half brother. He's actually a frost giant.
Yeah, they're not brothers in any way, except they grew up together. All right,
Yeah.
so that's it. Anybody have final comments?
Yes, I will have an answer to the Ralph Macchio in a second.
All right, I'll speak slowly till you find it. All right, next week is Captain America, the First Avenger.
Yay.
It's also from 2011. And if you want to watch it before next week, it's on Prime and Disney Plus. Amy?
I have two short paragraphs, very quick. As serious comic aficionados may know, there is a Ralph Macchio who happens to be a veteran editor and writer for
Oh,
Marvel
duh,
Comics.
right.
Yes, of
Co-wrote 4
course.
issues in the 80s. Not
Okay.
the same Ralph Macchio,
Yeah.
it says.
Wasn't even
Yeah.
thinking that.
They're not even related.
Yep.
How
Kind of
funny.
like Thor and Loki.
Right.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, perfect. Came around. Okay, kids, thank you all for being here. And I'll see you again next week.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Bye.
Bye.